Hi, everybody. Rob Mazak here. I am a psychic medium with lots of very interesting and cool services, and I have had the joy of great experiences with many clients and experiences in life, fun times, and I love to share with people. And of course, it has been given to me that it is my mission to share. So share I shall. I don't do a lot of videos with my podcasts. Generally, I do them just talking, but you got to evolve, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about an experience I had just a few nights back. And it was one of those things that really puts into question your real beliefs and what you truly believe in and how much you really believe in it. Because it's one thing to talk about life after death and you know engage in those services even and looking at other lives and past lives and looking at and getting information that certainly seems to equate to that life really doesn't end, that it just changes and your consciousness shifts to another. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at that. But when it comes down to the survivability or the surviving of the human being and staying alive, sometimes doubts will creep in, as you would imagine would happen with most human beings, right? Of course. I mean, if you think about ideas like, if the other side is such a wonderful place and it's such a peaceful place and full of love and just this amazing place to be, then why would we be so afraid to die? I think it's really part of that human nature that, it doesn't really. I don't know how to describe that. It's something that is hard to swallow that your beliefs could be reality. Because if you think about it, a belief or a truth that we have about whatever it is, in this case, life continuing after physical death, there's no way that we could really prove that. I mean, there are plenty of experiences I've had, regressing others, regressing myself, having regressions, looking at other lives, visiting the spiritual world or what I've been told was the spiritual world. But that doesn't mean that it's reality now, does it? Now, for me, it feels like it is reality. It feels like the truth, but truth is really wrapped into what? Our perceptions, our experiences through life, how we were raised, how our parents treated us, all those things. Everything just wraps into what we consider to be true. It does not mean it's true. In my mind, I've had way too many experiences to believe that there isn't life after physical death. I truly believe that. But once again, when you kind of teeter on that or feel like you're teetering on the crossing over, that's a whole nother thing. Now, I think most people would say that they would they're more scared of the dying process than it is for the actual death itself. I mean, let's just face it, most deaths are painful, not fun. Sometimes they drag out. Sometimes it's just god awful ugly, right? Sometimes it's instantaneous and there's no suffering, there's no pain, no issues. I get it. But anyway, there's a mix of those kinds of things. But once again, let's talk about one of my recent experiences. So I came off of almost 2 weeks of straight 14, 15, 16-hour days, dealing with the winter weather response here in Texas. And it was very, very stressful. Even when I had time to sleep, it wasn't very good because I was thinking about things that I probably should have remembered to do and on and on. And by the time I got done with that or done enough to actually go back to my house, So I don't stay in work in the same city that my house is at. During the week, I'm somewhere different. And by the time I got back, it was just very hard to relax. It was very difficult to kind of come out of that quote unquote work trauma. It was intense, let me tell you. And I hadn't worked out, and I usually work out a lot. I play soccer, I lift weights, I do all kinds of fun things. I did 3 hours of soccer practice last night, just for fun. Not doing that tonight because I want to talk to you guys. So there you go, right? You have to make our choices, right? Anyway, I decided to go out for a power walk, about 5 miles, weighted vest, nothing unusual really for me. And it really wasn't, I didn't feel like it was super intense. I did forget my water. And so I wasn't hydrating. Anyway, I think there was a combination of problems that led to over the afternoon and into the evening and woke me up after I went to sleep of what most people would consider signs and symptoms of heart problems, cardiac problems. I mean, it got pretty intense, shaking, and I finally just asked my wife to call an ambulance because, 65, there's a lot of things that can cause those types of things that aren't cardiac related, but you never know, right? You got to pay attention to the signs. And so when it wakes you up, you got to go. Anyway, it turned out not to be cardiac, and everything was beautiful. My vitals, once I got settled in, and they gave me all the regular regimen for heart attack type uh, potential. Everything kind of settled in. It was fine. My vital signs went down to glorious numbers. Actually, it was crazy. I mean, I didn't realize that they were that good. And so, anyway, got home 4 o'clock in the morning. They didn't keep me. But it really makes you, or made me think rather, about the fragility of life. And do I really believe in what I think I believe in? And that is the question, right? And I kind of battled with that for a couple days. And when you get older, it's even harder because you start looking at yourself and going, "Oh wow, this is eventually going to come to an end," and it's a very difficult thing to deal with sometimes, right? And I was really struggling with that, and I finally got what I thought was the lesson, that I simply needed to rest. My body needed to stop. My mind needed to stop. I just needed to relax, which is something, frankly, I'm not good at. And so I took that warning, heeded that warning, and I actually did do that. Even getting home at 4 o'clock in the morning, I couldn't sleep past 9 once we got into bed. My wife's like, "How can you be up by now?" I said, "I don't know. But we'll take a nap." And so I took a nap that afternoon fairly early. I slept for 3 hours. I never take a nap that long. That's crazy. And then I went back to sleep again that night for, I don't know, 11 hours, which is something I don't do or do it very well. And the next night I was also in bed at 8 o'clock, slept another, I don't know, 10 hours. And so for me, it was, is probably what I needed, right? And one of the things I've learned in my journey or along my journey is that when we are not paying attention to what we are supposed to be doing, we know what we should or should not be doing, eventually it will catch up with you. And in this case, it was a physical sign that got my attention. Obviously, it was not related to the heart, but the symptoms were created by my body, I'm assuming, to mimic that. So I would actually pay attention and stop. Pay attention to me, pay attention to relaxing, which is something I've got to get better at. I admit it. I'm a busybody. I like to be busy. I like to do things. And, sleeping a lot has never been my thing. But I call that the big spiritual hammer. And I've been telling people that for a long time. I'm not uh, exempt from the things I talk to people about or suggest to people, even though I'm usually better at paying attention. In this particular case, I really didn't have a lot of choice in the mission and the tasks and the things I had to do. There really was no one else that could help me. Is I have one of those jobs where, I only I can do certain things, only I have certain accesses, and so, when my boss asks me if I need help, I'm like, oh, it'd be great, but what am I going to have them do? Because they can't access the systems I have and things like that. And so I just powered through when I should have just figured it out, right? But I didn't. A little too proud, I guess. And I am good at what I do. I admit I'm not good at everything, but I am good at my job and what I do. And but I but you got to know your limits, you really do. But on the other note, what's interesting about this dynamic is when you push your limits, you certainly know what the limit is. It's one thing to say you're all in when you've never tried to go all in. You have no idea what your end point or your stopping point should be. Why? I know now, right? I know that I have to be mindful that I have to find ways for other people to help me to be successful, to get the mission done. And I don't always have to do it by myself, which is another trait of mine. I find that I would rather do things myself than to have other people do it for me. And it is something I'm also going to have to learn. But once again, let's circle back to the idea of death. And when we find ourselves feeling at least like we're on the brink of that. And the way I felt, it felt like, oh my gosh, this could be, very imminent, if you will, if this is really what's going on. If the ticker really is not doing well, then, could be the big one, right? And I make fun of that, but it's a serious thing, of course. And I really had to, along with sleeping a lot, I really spent a lot of time meditating, and which I haven't had time to do over those 2 weeks. Couldn't work out, couldn't meditate. It just really didn't have the time. And even if I did, I was exhausted, but exhausted to the point where I couldn't sleep, I couldn't concentrate, couldn't relax, and it's not a fun place to be. So we have to have some kind of balance in life, even though if you don't come out of balance, you don't get anywhere in life. I get that, but sometimes you have to know what the balance is so you can go back to it and find that peace and then rejuvenate and then get started again, right? But I have also found throughout my 30 years of doing physical therapy and my 10 or 11 years of doing Reiki energy work and learning about the body is that your body will manifest something to cause a distraction, to stop you from doing what you're doing, or to get you to do something different. And there could be absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's just a way to get your attention. And it could be our subconscious, it could be our mind, it could be anything from within us. It could be coming from the other side, through our guides, through different avenues. I think it's a little bit of all of that, right? And even though I've tried to meditate over even, a couple weeks before all this madness started, it seemed very difficult to connect. There's always for me a kind of knowing that streams in all the time. So stopping and meditating is kind of more of I don't know, ritualistic, I guess you'd say. And in the fact that it feels more conscious and less unconscious or subconscious, type of streaming, where I feel like I'm more involved and conversational or, engaged in it. It makes it more fun. It's kind of cool. And it just hasn't been all that um, robust in that respect. Always there, but not right, if you look at it consciously. It really wasn't there for my awareness, my conscious awareness anyway. I know it's always in the background because things come through, things happen all the time, messages, information. It's just, I mean, we all have that. Some of us just have recognized it a little bit more, and told the world that they can do that, right? That was a hard thing to do. Anyway, so I found that once I took the time to truly relax, which is an art form, it really is. To truly relax and let go and do nothing is a process that takes time for most people to learn. Some people, that's all they do, and they don't do the opposite. So, there's lots of sides of the equation. However, for me, to completely relax is difficult. But I was forced into it, right? We have already kind of established that. So last night, I believe it was, yeah, last night, no, night before, I actually took the time to meditate after I'd taken a nap. There you go. Naps are wonderful. So that I was awake and engaged in my meditation. And it was really, really cool. I always meet different entities, uh, people on the other side, outside of this reality, if you will, call it whatever you want. Met a older woman by appearance. It was interesting how I got to where she was sitting, at this big stone table and said, "Hey, I've been waiting on you to show up." And so we had this really long conversation. She introduced herself as Anastasia. My wife says, "You have a lot of entities with begins with the letter A, AN, in fact, and so my primary spirit guide is Angel. That's what the name we have agreed on works for us. And it was really a very, very interesting conversation. And she talked about a lot of different things. And the hard part is I wish I had a recording device. I probably should verbalize it and so I can really regurgitate it more. But there was a lot of interesting things, and she told me the same thing I'm telling you, that, the message that they had to deliver was to get me to slow down and relax and make sure I'm taking care of myself and hydrating and drinking less coffee and all these different things that, I know I should and shouldn't be doing. And we're always a little stubborn, right? But she was very kind about it. She wasn't, stern or mean or wicked or anything like that. But, it's like that really calm, motherly conversation. And she talked about the different realities and a lot of different things. And so I left that meditation much more knowledgeable, I think, and much more connected again, and much more in line with what happened, why it happened, and what I should do to keep it from happening again. Now, will I probably fall back again, perhaps, and overdo things? Quite possible. Kind of job I have, you never know. Something big like a winter storm coming through can hop in and it's all out, But on the other hand, I enjoy knowing what my limits are in a lot of ways. I really do. You really don't know how far you can go until you go as far as you can. Because when people say I've given 100%, that's nearly impossible. It's absolutely nearly impossible, especially when you get these motivational speakers about talk about 120%, 130%. You cannot go more than 100%. And even when you think you're at 100%, you're likely not. Science shows that you're really maybe maxing out at 40%. We can do a lot more than we think we can. However, we obviously have a limit. Even those of us that go, 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 go will hit a brick wall. It just happens. And so I would like you to kind of take this story. I know this is a sort of about me, but there's a reason I'm talking about this is because I think that all of us need to pay more attention to the signs, the symptoms, the things that are coming into our life that seem just out of nowhere, just happen, things that don't make sense, especially physical or mental. And there's usually a reason for it. There's some kind of someone poking the bear, going, you know what? Things need to change. Things need to be different. You need to go in a different direction. And if not, then you are going to stop right here. And so I just think that every day, well, I should say, I don't think, I know every day there's signs throughout your day, throughout your life, in dreams, what people say, um, numbers that keep popping up, the same color butterfly that flies by every day. All these things that seem coincidental are really not. I think synchronicity is more about what happens in life than coincidence. The difference is synchronicity means it's aligned as part of your life. See, how do I describe it? I think it's that. Coincidence just means just random things happen that seem to align. But synchronicity is more alignment on purpose or not by accident. Those were difficult to say. I think you know what I'm saying. Synchronicity is something that is meant to happen. And when you really pay attention and look at it, you go, that was really meant to happen, right? I mean, there was, people, I know people that get let go from jobs, just for some odd reason. Just like there's no explanation, there's no solid reasons why they got let go. Yet when they finally quit fighting it and they assess their life, they find that they were meant to do something else and something else was coming in their life. And so you can't have room for everything in your life, right? So sometimes you have to be removed from something, or something needs to be removed from your life so that there's room for the thing that should be coming next. Now, are we meant to do the same thing every day, all the time for our whole life? I don't know. I don't think so. I think personally that I think there should be new challenges. There should be new things happening. To grow as a person, you need change, in my opinion. The only thing permanent in life should be change. I personally love change. You know, some of the change that's painful, like getting an ambulance ride, maybe not as much fun, right? But it was a challenge. It was a change. It was a message, right? And I believe if you were to assess your life, whoever's on the other side of this camera, the other side of this video, you would also realize that there's a lot of things happening to you, happening for you, around you, changes in your life that you're just fighting, and you're not allowing the things to leave your life or come in your life that should come or go. And I really challenge you guys to pay a little more attention, purposely find time to relax, meditate, however it is you meditate. There's a million and one ways to do it. You ask a million people, you'll get 2 million different ways. Trust me, there's so many ways to meditate. And you just have to practice it and figure out what works for you. And meditation really just connects you to the deeper part of yourself and the cosmic internet, if you will, that reality or realities that are outside of us that contain so much information, so much knowledge, much more than we could ever contain or process in our human mind. And our human mind, as powerful as it is, could never process all there is to know. I mean, we as human beings, our senses seem profound and just, really bountiful, I guess, just powerful. Yet we only experience about 1% of all that is available to see and hear and feel and touch and taste and all that. 1%. That's what science will tell you anyway. And so that would mean that there's a whole lot more that we are not physically tuned into now. But if we can learn to meditate, slide that frequency dial, tune to other frequencies, we can pick up and touch and experience so many other things. In this RV that I'm staying in here, and in the space you're in, there might be an endless amount of frequencies, realities, whatever you call those realities. Parallel universes, some people say, whatever, all on different frequencies, all in the same space. Just like radio stations, all the radio stations that are available in this town, this city, are moving through this space. Yet, I can only tune my radio into one of those frequencies at a time. That doesn't mean the other ones aren't broadcasting, that they're not there. Same thing with the spiritual world, right? The other world out there, the other frequencies. We just need to tap into those, understand, trust what we get, and use those lessons to create a much better life, create a much better life for others, help others that can't necessarily or don't know how to or don't want to connect to this information, help them do it for them, I guess you'd say. And it really makes us a much more rounded or well-rounded person. It makes us a much better teacher and giver of counsel, if you will, advice, coaching, because if we work within just what we think is all there is, even though that seems like a lot, and it is a lot, there's an enormous amount more that we can tap into that we're not doing for ourselves and for others. And I think as human beings, we are here to grow. I mean, I know we're here to grow. Some of us do, some of us don't. Why that is, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. However, don't wait until you're on a gurney headed to the hospital on the edge of what you might consider life and death to finally make a decision to do these kind of things, to work on yourself, because you may not get another chance in this meat suit. Maybe another, if you believe what I believe, right? Maybe. But the thing is, we don't have as much time as we think. We really don't. Time goes by so fast, so fast. I'm 65 now. It feels like, just yesterday I was 21, and it just flies by. And if we don't pay attention and we don't experience all there is to experience, then why are we here? Why not, right? All right, I'll go ahead and wrap this up. But, I would really, really love to work with you and anybody that needs grooming or teaching on how to do these things and how to connect and to help get you started. My job with what I do in this line of work, if you would call it that, is to really push the start button. My job is to help you realize what you have, get you started, and off you go, right? So you can do it for somebody else. And that's what I'm about. And I was told very directly that that is my mission. And to share these things is also the other mission. And so here I am doing that. I really look forward to working with all of you, because when you come into the fold, if you will, and we're working together, I learn as well. Much of my experience is also brought to me by other clients. Just because I'm there to help them doesn't mean they're not helping me. So I become a much better person. You become a much better person, and we can create a much better world. So hop on over to my website when you get a chance, lifebymazak.com, lifebymazak.com. Everything you need to know about me, how to contact me, all that's right there. I look forward to working with you, look forward to hearing from you. Stay strong and live your life.